Well, we're back to solo sailing again. Gail is going to choose alternate transport. And the voyage today is from La Torbale to Saint-Croix-de-Vie. The passage is predicted to have fine weather, gray skies, 12 knots of breeze, and mostly downwind sailing. As usual, the tides will play a part in planning of this voyage. Earlier in the season, I changed my docking strategy. I now pull in bow first most of the time. So this means I pull out of the slip stern first, which is great because the narrowest part of the boat is the last to leave. Effectively, the slip ends up getting wider as the narrow bow leaves last. I'm leaving in ideal docking conditions, light air, and very little current. Though a little spooked from watching a boat crash yesterday. A charter boat hit a brand new Pogo 50, leaving a superficial gel coat ding. But boy, the owner spent a lot of time checking it out. Which brings up an interesting question. What responsibility does the boat owner have for having a boat that's oddly shaped, whether that's a solar panel or a davit hanging off the back, or just being enormous? If we all sailed 35-footers that had no extremity items, then docking would be easy. I'm now out of the marina, and it's time to stow my large collection of fenders and get some sails up. By the way, the large metal vessels docked against the pier support a wind farm offshore. They come and go twice a day with the world's largest and most annoying bow thruster. It sounds like metal being ground up. So we go radar, and then we select from this menu, transmit. To tune a radar, you turn up the gain until objects appear, but not so much that the entire screen is orange. As a second step, you tune for the environmental conditions. I like to go out to 3 miles. There we go, there's 3 miles. That's the coastline, and there are some targets. Those targets are showing up. We're gonna turn on something called overlay. The overlay feature takes the radar data and puts it over the chart. Gives a lot of situational awareness. You can find things as upcoming channel markers.
Here's why you have to be on deck. This guy has found some old pieces of styrofoam, and that is to warn you not to drive over his fishing pots. See that little, well, actually big boat on the horizon? Possibly one of the ships that take the workers out to the wind farm.
Well, enough motoring. We're free of the channel and in the open ocean, so it's time to get the mainsail up. Back to my usual technique, where I raise the mainsail to the second spreader just using the winch and my arm strength, and then at the second spreader I resort to the winch handle to get the last bit. You'll see I stop here for a bit. What I'm doing is easing the main sheet. I don't do that in the beginning because I don't want the boom flopping back and forth. Now I get that last little bit of mainsail up to make sure I get the best performance from the boat. Then, time to bear off and get on course. And finally, the last task to accomplish is easing the mainsail to the right attack to the wind. Now it's time to select a headsail, and I've gone with the Genoa for now at least. Gotta settle into the day, and the Genoa is always an easy way to approach that. The course today changes a bit, and it becomes closer to the wind initially and later on farther off the wind. I continue to fight my ever-present tendency to overtrim the main, so I'm easing it here as I try to get the boat on proper course. It's best to trim your Genoa first and then do the main. Well, I trimmed my Genoa, then I did the main, then I revisited the trim of the Genoa. We are sailing around a 120 true wind angle, which really should be perfect for the code, but I haven't brought it on deck yet. Put a bit of vang on, otherwise the boom starts to sky. There you go, nice wake. Faster under sail than I was under motor. It's pretty often this boat can match or exceed the motoring speed. In about 6 miles, I will be changing course, and so that might be a time to put up the chute. We'll evaluate then. Well, that's clear. I've decided to hoist the big black Spinnaker. All 150 or 60 square meters. We'll be pulling the boat along soon. Got a little work to do first, though. Today's hoist is much smoother as I spent the time to organize the snuffer line, and then the Spinnaker gets filled quickly by the power of the wind. Now I have to go back and adjust the sheet, as I usually overtrim it before hoist. As the sail fills, there's a strong tug on the sheet. Then that load passes through the block, and then the boat accelerates.
It's so ugly having the fenders out, I'm embarrassed. But today was supposed to be a lazy day, you know, light air. Now I'm all powered up. Nothing lazy about this. Got to keep watching that I end up clearing that last part of the wind farm. I haven't shown you the wind farm yet. Let's go look at it. Boy, this place is an embarrassing mess. Apologies, there's my jacket, there's my weight, and there's the wind farm. And we are making progress, more progress than we need to be making. It's not the best tide to come in too early.
Back on the bus while Jason's at sea. When I board a bus in a foreign country, I'm never quite sure whether I'm going to end up in the right place.
About 125 true wind angle, breeze at around 10 or 11 knots. I've got the halyard up pretty high. Got the tack on, not probably as tight, but we'll say a couple centimeters off. That's okay. And it's all driven by this guy who passed me. And he was just a little faster, probably due to my poor sail trim. And I couldn't stand it. True wind angle 127, a little close for the shoot. Would have been better probably to be on the code right now because I'd like to come up a couple degrees. My waypoint bearing right now is 165. I'm only getting 155, but soon I'll be able to crack off.
I disembarked at the end of the line, and yes, indeed, I was at the train station that I was looking for.
Making just usually great time. Don't need to be. All caused by a boat that passed me, so I had to put up more sail area. It's the kind of crazy stuff that happens here on the sea.
So I'm not allowed to enter the wind farm, and the boat, this is closer to the wind and this is off the wind. The problem is I'm pretty close for carrying a spinnaker. Right now I'm showing 117 true wind angle. That's a little close for this shoot. I only have 2.3 more miles of kind of trying to claw artificially close to the wind. And then I'll be able to turn down here and it will be a more comfortable angle for the sail.
Killing time in a nice walk in the leafy suburbs of La Balle-Escoblac. I can't see that far, but I know somewhere along the sea off this coast is Jason and Cyclops. I could definitely stay in this town, but I must go and catch my train, a couple of trains, to meet Jason in the next town.
Steering the boat downwind here, and what am I thinking about? First thing is I'm looking at the luff of the spinnaker to make sure it's folding in about 1/5 of the time. Then I'm trying to get in the rhythm of the small waves as they try to push me off course. One trick I always employ with a boat, especially when going downwind, is try not steering at all. The boat really does take care of itself. Then just apply small adjustments to stay in the groove. In this clip I bring the boat a touch too close to the wind, and heel is induced. The boat quickly protests. But I heard her and bore off. And now we've finally gotten past the wind farm. Hard to get the wind farm in camera. Let me go and show you the wind farm. Oh, does that change it?
There's your wind farm, there's your wake, and we're about to catch a boat called Butch. Hiding underneath the spinnaker up there is Butch. She's a few meters longer than us, but does not have her downwind sails up, so she is not at full potential. Let's talk a little about the autopilot in some of its more basic functions. I like to use wind mode when flying the chute, especially when it's starting to get a bit deep. So right now for this wind speed, 140 is deep. And so I'm basically saying to the boat, you know what, you just go as deep as possible and I'll worry about the navigation. Because wind mode can take you wherever it wants to go. Now earlier, I had the boat not in wind mode, but I had it in heading hold mode, which is, I think it would be better called compass mode. But basically, why was I that? Because I was trying to get around the wind farm, and most important, I didn't hit anything, and I would just continuously trim the chute in response to the changes. Another one's called no drift, which you never use, but that basically allows the autopilot to be the tiller. And what I mean by that is, if you head up 3 degrees, it just keeps the rudder 3 degrees turned. So I can imagine using that in a situation maybe where you have a broken wheel, but that's pretty unlikely on a 2-tiller boat. And then nav mode is kind of, they should call it motorboat mode. And it just says, stay on this darn line that I have set for the trip and don't do anything else. And actually, it's a little dangerous. If I engaged it right now, it would turn radically to get to the line. This is Sea Sprat, and that was quite a little bit of action. I was in a situation where I was allowed to cross, otherwise known as the stand-on vessel, and it was kind of close, and Sea Sprat wasn't doing anything. I hailed her twice, no response. So then I started preparing for taking my chute down because I didn't have many other options. And while I was in that process, she then did adjust course. When you have the chute up, you have to be very strategic because you don't have as much easy maneuvering.
Boat speed's almost hitting 10 knots. Go, Cyclops, go! We do have a knot of current assisting us, but we'll keep that under wraps.
This is my preparation for takedown. Got my little snatch block here, and I've tried to straighten out the control lines for the sock. They really like to get screwy. Someday I'd like to color code them.
I clearly need to raise the Spinnaker halyard an additional foot.
Right now I'm carrying the Spinnaker closer than I have in the past. The sailmaker says the true wind angle should not be less than 115. The luff of the sail isn't as tight as I'd like it, so I've been sort of keeping it a couple degrees deeper. Really, I should put up the code. That would be the right answer. When navigating this boat, because when you have the Spinnaker up, you're going to be going sometimes 50% faster than other boats. You have to be a bit more on your game.
One challenge is when looking to leeward, your view is obscured by the big Spinnaker.
I use the radar to look underneath the Spinnaker.
I suspect a lot of thought went into the cockpit design of the JPK 39. The winch is placed in a location that keeps your body in the center of the boat, which increases safety. That, coupled with my 3-speed winches, means I have no incentive for putting my weight out towards the leeward side. When I look back at this video, I realize I'm probably not using enough wraps around the winch. I currently am using 3 to 4, when 4 to 5 is probably a better number.
One of my preferences is to have both thumbs. I do adjust the Spinnaker sheet tension quite frequently. Right now it just feels like a piece of steel here, so tight. When easing it, I find it really much safer to not have the winch handle in there. And when I'm not doing anything, I put a little like this in case it were to come off the jaws. I have a crossing situation. I am the giveaway vessel. Let's go check on the boat. And it is a search and rescue vessel. That's probably the best boat to hit. This is why I find the English Channel actually easier, because everybody's going in a sort of predictable direction. I have this guy to watch out for. He's coming in. Underneath my Spinnaker is this annoying search and rescue boat going 2 knots to nowhere. Here's the situation on the chart plotter. That's the green boat coming in. I'm giving her my green light, so she's the stand-on. And same thing to this vessel. So both of these I have to get out of their way. It's getting a little dicey. Well, how is this unfolding? This vessel, I'm crossing her comfortably. This guy, I'm going to take her stern quite closely. Taking sterns, you can do that, no problem. You control it. So I'm in a safe spot. Breeze dropped, so that made my calculations a bit more dynamic. One more check-in on this navigational conundrum. There's the guard boat. And now I'm fully clear of this guy. These are 3-speed winches. In lighter air, which we're not really in that right now, there's a chance for the winch to kind of wobble back and forth. That's natural. The second thing this kind of gets used to is it's currently loaded up and it's in gear, and boom, you hear that noise? That's the gear changing. The winch popped out of gear. It's in 1 and 2. I go like this, really tough.
That is first gear. Grinding the winch the other direction, I'm in second gear, like a traditional winch. But when I turn the winch clockwise the second time, I enter third gear.
Basically, it automatically, with load, shifts from 1-2 to 3-4. We still have the Spinnaker up. It's been up for about, I don't know, 6-7 hours. We're in the process of passing another boat. I have decided to take a shortcut. Not a huge shortcut, but let's go look at the chart and figure this out. Here is the shortcut I'm taking. So over here is the waypoint that keeps you away from this blue area, which is less than 5 meters. But I am going to sneak through this little white area. I only need 2.7 meters of my keel down. And it is, unfortunately, near low water. Well, the boat might look a little different now, or at least the sail trim. See that big chunk of spinnaker that's hanging out there? That's my max downwind mode. I've eased the sheet, of course. Also eased the tack line a bit, and now we're down to 148. In terms of trying to figure out how much to ease the sheet, I just do it so that the luff of it just curls in every once in a while. With an asymmetric, at least on this boat, and the Autopilot, seems to take care of it quite well. And I think I probably could experiment with letting the man out even more, you know, all the way to the shrouds. Spinnaker sheet is sort of holding the boom back. Maybe I need a barber hauler for that. We are now lined up nicely for the little gap here. By the way, the chart plotter is telling me 1.1 meters. And what that means is you add 1.1 to whatever the number on the chart is. Right in the middle of our terrifying navigation shortcut. And I'm distracted by talking to you. You know I shouldn't be doing that. So goodbye. Comment about sailing under the Spinnaker versus the Code Zero. I chose the Spinnaker to have on deck today because I thought the wind would be pretty much dead downwind, and it turned out not to be. The bulk of the time I was probably in the Spinnaker optimal zone, but there was a period where I was at a 115, even 110 true wind angle, which probably would have been faster under the Code. Of course, the changeover time would be about a half hour, so that's not a really great move. If in doubt, if you were just crossing over the crossover point, you know, the extra sail area of the Spinnaker might be the determinant. Of course, if it's windier, then the Code might be the determinant because it's probably easier to stow. I find working with the Spinnaker quite easy just because it's lighter. It's very easy to get on deck. The Code is kind of better to do when you're in the marina to lug it on deck. Also would love to see a crossover chart for the boat. An extra knot of breeze and some more easing of the tack line and more easing of the sheet. Got even more shoulder there to windward. We'll call it 153 downwind. Halfway through the tight spot. I must say, it isn't as dramatic maybe as I'm making it up to be. The screen I have up right now is the forward-looking sonar, which is telling me that the current depth's 5'9", but more importantly, that the future depths are still around the same depth. Oh, the fisherman devices out there. Always trying to catch me. Notice that the water's very green here. I wonder why. I'm in 8 meters of water. Usually I think that the bottom of the ocean creates a lot of its color.
The Bahamian water is very blue because the white sand is getting the reflection of the sky.
Maybe somebody smarter on this topic can tell me. When I get next to the port, that I will anchor. And the reason is this river can have something like up to 6 knots. And so it's best to come in around high water. And the nice thing is Gail will be arriving earlier than me and can kind of suss out whether it's worth coming in before the tide mitigates. Just a few things when you anchor on this boat you have to keep in mind. First thing is you have to give power to the windlass. My old boat, power was always on. The other element is to untie the line that holds the anchor up in case the chain were to slip off. And then the third thing is it's really good to have the bow fender on. Long before that, I have 1,400 square feet of laundry to put away, aka the Spinnaker. And do a severe turn to avoid the flying fisherman. Drive me nuts. All prepped for the takedown. So all I have to do is take that little hitch out of the block, and then I can start pulling on that side. This is the uppy line, which I won't touch at all. That's the downy line. And then this pile of line has been coiled, so it should run smoothly. Then you release the tack line. The tack line, the sail starts flying forward with the tack line. The Tylaska shackle gets triggered. Now, if it doesn't get triggered, it's no problem. Then the Spinnaker will float back behind the mainsail. And at that point, I pull down on this line because I'm scrambling to come forward because I've just released the tack line. Oh, I gotta go trim. Watch this. Boom. Pushing it downwind a little too much. A little too deep.
In a rather anticlimactic moment, the Spinnaker drop did not go as planned. As you can see, the shackle did not get triggered because the line for it was too loose. But the snuffer did its normal job, and later I docked in Saint-Croix de la Vie.